Evening, you alright? Hello. If you don't know me, my name is Neville. I do lots and lots of different things. If you are expecting a video about doing workouts or reasons to feel better, you're watching the wrong video. I'll tell you that and for nothing. Um, I wanted to do a reading of a Patti Smith story about working in a factory. Unfortunately, it's contained in a book called Beat Punks, and I haven't read it for quite a while, as you can tell, because I obviously spilled a shed load of water on it. So it's kind of literally unreadable. So we'll have to abandon that for the evening. Sorry, Patty. Next time. So I get asked a lot, have you ever thought about writing a book? Because I've done lots of different things, and I've had lots of different jobs. I've worked as a carer, I've worked at a comic shop, I once did it. I can't tell you that now. So the one that people ask me the most often about is the comics life, because I have a lot of ridiculous stories, because I end up in a lot of ridiculous situations, because I don't know why. That's not what we're doing tonight. What we are doing tonight, I can promise you this is a valid thing, because true story, I am a card-carrying member of the Kitten Natty Dads fan club, right? So that's quite good. That's proper verification right there. I'm going to read you a sample chapter of a book I'm writing with a friend about a very different subject. I've not worked with a writing partner before, and it's quite a pleasant experience, because obviously everyone thinks they're funny until they get out and try out their material, and then sometimes it just kind of goes, oh, that falls flat. But when you've got someone to bounce stuff off with, it's kind of divine. It's almost a blissful experience, something I haven't had before. So you will indulge me, or you won't, because you'll have switched off the video by now. I won't know, so I don't care. Because once I get the music going, you're going to listen to a sample chapter of this work, which I can't reveal the title of yet. Ba-ba-ba. Hopefully this will pick up that sound, and I've been quite clever. I'm using a bit of public domain jazz. This is called Don't Be Weary Traveller, if you want to look it up. So, with no further ado, this is The Ultimate Blowjob by Nevs Coleman. There was a rule. It was the main rule. You either adhered to that rule, or your ass was well and truly ejected from the premises. Ejected faster than the Jamaican bobsled team racing to the finish line, because the guy at the front has a raging case of diarrhea about to explode at any given moment. Portia was on stage. It was 11 p.m. and she was already losing the will to live on this dead-ass Thursday. Portia sighed as she looked out from the stage. The lights had been misplaced again, so the glare was directly in her eyes, again. But at least she was saved the sight of the glum array of Fraggle-like men in the audience. In her head, she could at least pretend she was doing a stage show for Brad Pitt, Jason Momoa and Tom Hardy, which certainly made her a bit more enthusiastic about the 2 songs worth of performance in front of her. Side note, strippers always have stupid names, and we'll return to this subject later on. It was Thursday, so 2 for 1 on the Magnus, and the smell of burped apple hung heavy in the air, along with the fragrant aroma of chicken tikka masala, vindaloo and onion bhaji, all escaping the rear ends of the group of middle-aged men on a lads' night out that just had to go get an Indian feast first, before they came to the strip club, fully loaded with exotic joys. I had warned Portia that Dave was in the audience. Dave was the kind of man that made you heave if you saw him, let alone smelt him. The whiff of body odour combined with layers of what could only be described as drippy willy syndrome. Weeks of it. The cologne of choice was eau-de piss mixed with the damp smell of musky clothes that hadn't been hung out to dry properly. Maybe ever. Now Dave thought he was clever because he believed he'd found a way around the rule. For years, strip clubs in the UK have lived by the rule of no touching, to the point that it should have been second nature to any regular patron of such a high-end entertainment establishment. Now, no touching meant no touching. No hands waving around in the air in the hope that they might brush a nipple. No fingers, and don't even try to insert that digit anywhere, or I will snap it off with my teeth and shove it up your own arse. And no accidental waves, no happenstance brushing up at the bar. And if you try to brush your elbow against my breast one more time, I will happily elbow drop you like a Mexican wrestler on speed. Now, if you worked a good place, you do your stage show pole dance. It was a way of flaunting your wares to the potential audience, and then hope that the fuckwits would pay for a private dance where you could actually make some money. Because no one tips stage shows in the UK. We're British after all. We don't like to tip for anything, even if it is a woman hanging upside down on a pole by her little toe. Which is quite frankly a feat of defiance to gravity itself. In what can only be described as underwear, the size of a eye patch for it. Do you know what? That bit's a bit bollocks, isn't it? You'll have to forgive me because I got distracted because I wasn't expecting the next song to have lyrics in it. So, I'm going to take it from not the entire top. I'm going to take it from If You Worked a Good Place, right? Because you're a nice audience. You deserve a focused and somewhat understandable reading. So, let's try that again. If you worked a good place, you'd do your stage show pole dance, as it was a way of flaunting your wares to the potential audience, and then you'd hope that the fuckwits would pay for a private dance where you could actually make some money. Because nobody tips stage shows in the UK, and we're British after all. We don't like to tip for anything, even if it is a woman hanging upside down on a pole by her little toe, which quite frankly is a feat of defiance to gravity itself, in what can only be described as underwear the size of an eye patch for a small child. If you were in a bad place, and I'm not saying this is a bad place, but I'm not saying it isn't, you got the likes of Dave. Dave, who when asked if he would like a private dance, would laugh and say, "No mate, I'm gay!" And he'd burst into roaring laughter, throwing his head back to reveal the flickering nostril hair desperately trying to escape his face. Because the thing is, Dave was of course the first man to ever say that line. And if I had a £1 coin for every time a bloke had used that line for the first time, I'd have enough that I could roll around in those coins like an overexcited 2-year-old in a ballpark. Disclaimer though, mind. Coins are hard, and they're not generally designed to be rolled around upon. Please do not try this at home, or anywhere else that you may have stashed a ludicrous amount of British coinage. Dave is the sort of person who would happily have gone up to Harry Enfield in a public place and say, "You didn't want to do that, did ya?" Considering himself definitely the first person who had thought of repeating a comedian's punchline back to him. Dave thought he had found a hilarious way around the no touching rule, because naturally he thought everything he did was hilarious. This is because Dave had the self-awareness of a walrus on Valium. Portia did her first scouting of the front row, an eye open for potential private dances for later. She saw a couple of chaps looking awkward. The sweat rolled down their neck and their eyes darted around in erratic panic, trying to take in everything about her. But these lads were proper chiselers, and they were watching the free show as hard as their glazed and vacant eyes would allow, as they definitely wouldn't be paying out for a private dance. You are, incidentally, invited to draw your own conclusion as to the source of this vacant stare. Now, I didn't use the words illegal substances, did I? Didn't hear those come from my lips until just then. So, if you have thought of that, that is quite clearly your imagination at work. As Portia slowly twirled around the pole with the grace and poise of a prima ballerina but the costume of a Soho hooker, her heart sank and the curl of her smile diminished as she spotted Dave, looking straight at her with the naked lust of a priest with his favourite choir boy. Her sensual stride took her sadly, and unfortunately closer to him, to Dave, and his comb-over, resembling more Homer Simpson than whichever dashing hero of 1970s cinema he deluded himself he was dolled up as tonight. Dave, with his well-worn and rarely opened Primark wallet out, grubby £20 notes markedly apparent and scattered upon his ignored crotch, his smug face filled with his own delight at the idea of being able to purchase the sort of lady that nature would have naturally kept away from him in the real world. The gentle sway of her well-rounded hips was disrupted as a small burst of cool but unpleasant and slightly manky air hit her straight in the arse, and she turned to see Dave caught in a leer of self-satisfaction. "Don't blow on me, Dave." "It's not touching, though, is it? Not touched you, not once. Me hands are on the chair." She dipped and flicked her luscious hair as she paused by the pole, nuzzling the cool steel between her perfectly formed butt cheeks like some well-parked bike. She then mesmerizingly performed a full circle swing backwards around the pole with her back arched, effortlessly and gracefully, giving the audience a full view of her enormous and pendulous breasts. The restrictive power of the underwire was testament to the beauty of science in motion, which also gave her a chance to get a second look at the clientele by the bar. Nothing exciting going on. No fresh divorcees wanting to empty their bank account to save passing on that cash onto their now ex-wives. No gangs of businessmen out to entertain and impress on the company card. These were cheap lads tonight, who paid the £5 entry fee and were counting their shrapnel to cover another round, all small notes and no plastic. There was no point going beyond the front row. Portia decided this time she would go from left to right on her second survey of her audience. Half of them were paying attention, and the other half were panic texting their significant others that they were on the way home but somehow, sadly, missed the last train. Mainly, she went left to get Dave out of the way. This time she twirled as she moved, timing the flow of hips to counter the swing of her boobs, and she moved her hips inwards to try to avoid Dave, but this time he blew aggressively at her arm instead. "Last chance, Dave." A glimmer of malice flashed across her eyes as she whispered, "Next time, I'll blow back." "Hey, I'd bloody love to be blown by you, love, though. Did you hear that? I said it, I'd love it if she blew me back." "I'm not touching, though, am I? I'm not touching." He bellowed over to the men behind him, looking for a laugh and approval from them, but getting nothing but awkward smiles and eye rolls instead. On her final approach, Portia whipped out a spectacular pole combo that would make an Olympic gymnast weep. She effortlessly landed in the splits, much to the awe of the men in the room, who could barely touch their own toes to do their shoelaces up. Portia was now G-string, jiggle, heels, intense sensuality personified, and Dave's eyes were filled with a glee like a headmaster's son knowing he couldn't be expelled, and his right knee unconsciously trembled with anticipation as she strode savagely towards him like a lioness approaching an oblivious gazelle. This time, he blew so hard, you could hear him struggle to drag the oxygen from his incompetent lungs. The pathetic wheeze breezed by her left nipple. "Go on, darling!" he shouted. "You told all these people you were going to blow me and I can't bloody wait!" And Dave had wiggled in his chair with glee like a child on Christmas Eve. She paused and span 180 degrees perfectly on one heel, so she faced the stage, slowly blending forward so her plump ass was perfectly in line with Dave's beaming face. "Pwah! Bloody love it, don't I?" Dave nudged the stranger to his side, taking another swig of cheap Magnus. Portia shimmied backwards, so the curve of her ass could be no closer to Dave's eager and excited face. And she let rip with, quite frankly, the loudest fart I've ever heard erupt from a woman. Turgid, the dank gas filled his nose and mouth. His eyes streamed and left him coughing with his face reeking of heavy arse burp, all blasted out with the force of the Death Star. Dave said nothing else that night and never, ever blew on a stripper again. So, that is it. Hope you enjoyed it. Feedback would be appreciated. Like and share and subscribe with all your friends, yada yada. So yeah, I hope this evening has found you well and you are coping as best you can in this particular crisis. That is me for now, and I will talk to you later. Good night.